These two important parts we need to take away from today. So if you take a look at the harmony scale of 20% and 80%, 20% of what makes us successful is IQ. 80% of what makes us successful is EQ. Emotional intelligence, how we interact with people, how we understand our emotions, it's really important. Very successful. Because a lot of folks, we can take tests, we're born with some sort of inherent intelligence, but to really understand our behaviors and others' behaviors and how to interact is extremely key. A lot of great leaders, what do you think they have? And this is a short answer. What do you think they have? The great leaders have more EQ or IQ? Absolutely EQ. They hire people with great IQ. So please understand the importance of that. Daniel Goleman, for those of us who really want to get in tune with this and try to do some research on this, Daniel Goleman is the frontier on emotional intelligence. So please get that because that's important. That's what's happening in business today. Jared read something to you guys regarding my recent, very informative trip to Indonesia, Jakarta. It was about 60 executives, and I would probably say 90% of them were Asian, extremely successful. And when I went to this whole EQ, IQ scenario, I would honestly tell you that they had already bought the books, they studied the books, and they understand the importance of EQ. So, and this was at the University of Jakarta. So please understand the importance of that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And here's some examples of how we can measure where we are on the EQ and the IQ scale. And again, I apologize if you can't see. So if you see yourself on the left-hand side should say low EQ. So low EQ, how many of us are often frustrated, unaware, restless, unhappy, angry, lonely, dependent, tired, and perceive a lot of the things as failure? That's on a low EQ side. On the right side, satisfied, aware, peaceful, high self-esteem, happy, motivated, energetic, and that's just a few. That's on the higher EQ side. Understanding self and others is really important as we look at the EQ piece of it. So I'm going to take a pause, and I'm going to take 3 questions, because we have a lot of topics to cover. I'm going to take 3 questions on just a small blurb we just talked about on EQ and IQ. Let's see how good we are on any questions. We raise our hands, 3 quick questions. We good? Yes. First name? First name is? Carmen. Yeah, thank you for the question.
I was wondering, because I feel that you can have both. You could be like, let's say, at one point, you could be satisfied and also feel rejected or dependent on something. So what do you call that?
Excellent. First of all, that's a very good question. The opportunity, again, this is part of our checklist when you guys get the workbook. The checklist is you look through how many on the left-hand portion of the screen that you have checked, and you try to minimize that to bring it to the right side. For optimal purposes, at least 1 or 2 on the left-hand side, no more than that. So very good question, Carmen. Give me 2 more questions before we move on to another very important part. Thank you for that question. 2 more. First name is? Kathleen. Thank you for the question, Kathleen. If you have a low EQ, first of all, very good. Identifying where you are on the scale is important, and identifying why you have certain characteristics and skills and behaviors on one side of the table as well. Okay, what makes me frustrated? What makes me angry? And try to identify those things. Because what's really, really key is how we handle situations. It's not the person or the problem, is how we handle those situations. And folks with emotional intelligence, high emotional intelligence, understand that if I continue to let things bother me, get me angry, get me upset, it's only going to affect me and my successes and my health. The other people other person, the problem will continue. It's how I accept these problems and these challenges. Okay? Very good question. Thank you. Give me one more. See how good, Joe. One more. First name is, thank you, sir.
David.
David?
Yeah.
Thank you, David, for the question.
Have you been aware if a person who had low EQ was still successful?
Okay, and I'm hoping, I was so glad you asked that question. I just met you for the first time, David, and so it's not a setup question. Success is important to us, but it's not driven, David, by money. It's by how many goals that we accomplish. How many goals that we accomplish, that we set ourselves up to accomplish, right? So to your part, if you have a low EQ, in most cases, you're not accepting and you're not exceeding your goals, own goals. Okay, so again, it's not about money. So again, thank you for that question. So you clapping, I guess you agree, your first name is? Les, absolutely. So please understand that. And that's really important as a takeaway. Yeah, okay? What I also want to talk about is, once we understand a little bit about EQ, and you guys are going to do a little bit of homework and reading on it, which is going to be fantastic. But then it's now utilizing that when it comes to relationships. And we're talking about, we spend more time with each other than we do at home. We spend more time with each other than we do at home. It is proven, and this is a morbid but dramatic yet realistic statement. Violence happens 90% of the time between people or someone that they know. What does that mean? That means we're safer with strangers in most cases. We're safer with strangers in most cases because people around us, they either know how to push buttons or we let them affect us tremendously. Violence in the workplace have increased triple in the last 7 years. Almost every time we turn on the TV, there's something in the media about violence in the workplace. And if you notice, one of the reasons why when Jared was reading off that list, I'm really teaching and talking a lot in full workshops at colleges, is because a lot of the anger and the resentment are now being targeted where? In academia. Not good. And in most cases, it's not just the parents or the students, but it's how we're treating them from simple things. You know, and we're going to talk a lot about that, which is important. So do we understand that concept? Any questions before I move forward on just that concept? Okay. Get through all the bullets, especially since you guys don't have here. So when we look at conflict, we look at, and we talk a little bit about that, and just going through this as a summary. Personality clashes, decreased communication, highly emotional, and including anger. When we have an air about us, or it's tension in our department, there's obviously a conflict situation. We should go into communication with an understanding to have almost a win-win situation where we both come out of it with an understanding. We don't necessarily have to agree, but we have to come to an agreement. So this, I don't want to miss anything that's just, again, especially if you don't have things in front of you. Goals. When we set ourselves with goals, and we set, as far as those of us in this room who have the responsibility to manage others, just raise your hand. Those of us who are managing others, many of us here in this class, this room, 1, 2, 3, okay. It's really, and it's my leadership team over there, yes. It's really, really important to, when you're communicating goals, not just to communicate and stop. Communication is a two-way street. So what does that mean? That means you must get some sort of engagement or agreement or buy-in, acknowledgement. Because just standing and talking and the person's not repeating anything back to you or giving their understanding of what you said, you're going to be back at the same position when you started. So if you have not said to the person, help me understand, or tell me what we just talked about. And the person looks at me like, I understand English. We have done exercises and workshops where you see two people talk and communicate, you see the leader talk and communicate, and then at the end of it, you ask the questions, and the message was a little different. And that's because questions were not asked. If you do not ask questions, or get some feedback on what is said, then again, we're back at the starting point. Nothing has been done. Really, really important with this. I'm hoping that our leadership team understand that, as that concept is really important. As for goals and buy-in, and less conflict will happen at that time. Excuse me. One of the things I also want to talk about is this, and again, bear with me because I usually have you guys have this in front of you. 4 things that I want to go into when you're looking at how we're going to deal with certain conflict and as well as attention in our lives. The first thing that's really important is this relationship long-term or passive, because how we deal with situations is to understand if it's a long-term situation or if it's passive. Because if it's long-term, we have to put a lot more energy and effort in it. We have to get a longer and a more committed buy-in. Is the relationship substantive or narrow? And again, for us that's working in a working environment, if the conflict is in a working environment, it's always substantive. We always need to come to a resolution and really work hard to get that resolution. And we're going to skip over the 3rd and go to the 4th. How important is to maintain and working a friendly relationship with those with whom I'm in conflict? This is really important for interdepartmental communication. One of the things that we need to do going forward is take what I call a self-assessment for folks that we interact with from a personal level as well as professional level. So how often have you talked to someone in another department that says anything that we can do to improve the relationship, anything that we can do that you're not satisfied with, have that dialogue with another department, others, at least once a quarter. How many of us honestly have done that? Raise your hand, how many honestly here have done that? Really important. And this does not translate just from the workplace, also personal relationships. Also personal relationships. Really important. So I'm going to stop for a second and take a question or two, if you have it. Nothing, no questions asked, however, hello, first thing. Rachel, go ahead, Rachel.
Can you explain a little bit more on the difference between substantive and narrow?
Very good. One of the things, when we're looking at relationships, and especially long-term relationships, you're going to have to spend some time on coming to the root cause. A lot of it is personality-driven. A lot of it has something deep-rooted and something that may have happened a long time ago. Something narrow and something I need to just address some of the non-deep-rooted causes or something recent that just have happened. Okay? And again, this opportunity, and hopefully I see some of you writing down some questions and some concerns. This opportunity that we have today are small topics that we will possibly be doing some full workshops with that are very important and critical for employees as well as leaders. Here's a tool. When we're talking about communication and conflict, that I want you guys to walk and girls to walk away from, and this is key. When you're communicating to someone, and you're communicating to them and you want to get the message across, and especially if it's something that you want to change some behavior, here's a tip. The first thing is, look, I want to talk to you a little later about the ladies. Notice the pause. Notice the silence. Some of us who are in our 40s remember our parents doing things like that. They make a statement and I pause, and it was probably the worst feeling in the whole world. Okay? That pause is very, very important for everything we do. Changing behavior, to have the person understand the importance of it. Here's another example. Good job on the report today. Very important. That pause is really important. And some of the other things we talk about when you're dealing with tension, when you're dealing with conflict, is make the emotions congruent to whatever you're speaking about. How many times have we had a supervisor that said, good job? What does that mean? What does that mean, good job? And walk away without the right emotion. Right? Really, really important. So again, small things that I want us to walk away with in this 20 to 25 minute session. Questions? Be careful there. Or concerns on what I just said. Good? Jared, I don't have these groups of folks. So good. Okay. Carmen, that's my friend Carmen again, by the way. I don't know her from today, but I'm liking her so far. Talk to me, Carmen. Ooh, absolutely. Listen, there's a lot of things that we would get out of this workshop, right? How many times? First of all, it's about the content. It's about the content. It's about the seriousness of a message. It's almost like, and here's some, I love to use scenarios in the workshop. It's almost like when someone tells you that they love you and they give you a strong hug, as opposed to that little partial something that they give you, right? That's the same thing with the handshake. We can't hug too much in the workplace. I teach sexual harassment, but we can give, and even the women, look at Carmen's legs firm, even the women, don't try to break the knuckles, but that's, that's important. Okay? So again, that was a very good question and very important. Congruent with the message. That, again, it talks about tension, we talk about emotional intelligence, little things like that help. Good question, Carmen. All right. And again, this is another area, and again, I'm going to keep apologizing. I'm going to stop. This will be my last time apologizing. No more apologies. On the workbook that I was going to give you guys, there are at least 20 different problem employees, co-workers, that there's some tools that we can use to work better with them, correct? I just identified a few. So here's an example. See if you can notice any of these that we've worked with in our working history. The overachiever. The overachiever, raise your hand if you see some overachievers. Some overachievers. Recognize that one of the things to work with, successfully work with an overachiever, is recognize the valuable traits of this person and thank him or her. Really important. A lot of the overachievers, in most cases, really need to be recognized. And here's a takeaway. Here's a takeaway. This takeaway is important. And a lot of our managers, I know you've heard of it, but it's important to praise publicly and condemn privately. Say it again. Key. Praise publicly and condemn privately. Something else that's going to be important for us leaders, and it's funny because every time we talk about this, some employees say, my God, I wish my boss would take this workshop. Right? Don't compare. Even as parents, I have two sons, by the way, an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. Do not compare. You don't say, Brad did this and he does it well, he's a fantastic employee, to another employee. You don't do that. That comparison is not a way to motivate or to change behavior at all. Okay? So again, I'm all over the place. I want to make sure I don't forget certain things, but again, that's really important. So again, overachievers. We talk about the overachievers. The mistaken. Be tactful. I see your point, but how can we reconcile that with a mistake? Again, state the point correctly, because a lot of folks say, well, if I'm not mistaken, they interrupt the meetings all the time. The know-it-all. I can probably tell you, in most organizations I work for, there's a handful of know-it-alls. Okay? Avoid theory or speculation by focusing the group on a review of the facts. What you want to do for a know-it-all is to try to, here's a hypothetical. First name is? Adele. Yeah, I don't know if you know what I know you're not. I'm saying. Oh, okay, good. If we feel that Adele is a know-it-all, okay, try to keep her involved in the conversation a little bit before she overtakes your conversations and your meetings. Okay? See, Adele, I know Adele have the answer, but Carmen, what do you think it is? Okay? Really important to do so. Very important tactic. Okay? Oh my God, I love this one. The latecomer. One of the things, there's a tool, again, I'm full time. One of the tools for latecomers is young man with the glasses, right there, straight ahead, looking nice and GQ. What's your first name? Mike. The meeting's already started, and Johnny come lately, right? Mike come lately. I said, good morning, Mike. Just stop. Let Mike take a seat. That, in most cases, acknowledges him, because again, it's important that he's put out there. Okay? Really important. And then afterwards, or during, you can say, Mike, especially your position, Mike, after the meeting today, I want to talk to you about something really important. Just say something really important. That's it. Again, things that's going to change behavior. Really important. The early leaver, I've been blessed that I haven't had the opportunity to work with too many early leavers unless they come in at the crack of dawn. Okay? Because the workload that were put on us from in academia and in the professional world, we don't get to lead to it early in many cases. Okay? So, disagree? Oh. Before the meeting begins, announce, confirm the ending time, and ask if anything else scheduled. I use this example for meetings, and for those of us who want to also make sure that messages are clear, make sure that some conflict is resolved in some way, let's focus quickly on meetings. First of all, can I talk a little bit about that? Let's talk about that for a second. Talk about meetings, because one of the challenges with this about behavior, one of the challenges I've always had is when we have a meeting, three things are key. Three things are key. Is a start time established, and a set time, and an end time established. So again, is a start time established and an end time established. Has an agenda been put towards the group? Some sort of agenda put towards the group. And if most cases, is it engaging? Right? So if you say, for an example, what's your first name? Lisa? Lisa. Before the meeting, we have 7 things we're going to cover today. These are the 7 things we're going to cover today. I was hoping that you cover this point. Lisa's going to say, I don't know anything about that. I want you to do some work on it, do some reading. You can just read off this paragraph. I want you to talk about the point. What does that do for the meeting, and what does that do for Lisa? Someone, tell me. Puts her on the spot? We do want to put her on the spot. But what else does it do? And what's your first name? Carolyn, what else does it do, Carolyn? And a significant, we're going to talk about responsible thinking, a significant experience or an uncomfortable feeling, in most cases, changes behavior. Please understand, changes behavior. And it also allows us to get, or folks in our meeting, to get a different perspective from someone else. How often have we had meetings or we've said some things over and over again, and then someone else comes say it, and the group or the person recognizes it or really gets to the point? You say, really? I've been talking about that for a long time. Right? So again, that's important to understand. And before going into talking about negative behavior and conflict a little bit more, I want to say some things that I consider basic to our culture that we have not really taken advantage of and we've moved away from. Really basic. There's some more takeaways. We have leaned away from the basics of thank you. We have leaned away from good morning. In most cases, you know you have a person who's not a morning person, so at least a morning is important. So I'm going to say that again. Some people are not morning people, but a morning is important. Okay? Some people don't start operating until 10:30, 11 o'clock after 2 or 3 cups of Java. Okay? So, but the basics we've leaned away from. So a lot of our conflicts, a lot of our trials and our tribulations are from because we've leaned away from the basics. Good morning or morning. Thank you. Please. So, you said Lisa, right? Okay. Lisa said something important. I had a conference just recently at another academic institution, and I stopped and I said, any questions? Management team, they were like on that side of the room, right? They said, please, but we're paying them to do a job. Interesting. Please is important every day. The thank yous is important every day. How many times, and I don't want to digress, but how many, because we're still talking about conflict and handling challenges, how many times have we started emails and people started an email just requesting things at the top of the day? Like, really? What happened to good morning, hello, good evening, that sort of thing? That takes less than 2 seconds to do, and it's easy. But here's the caveat to that. If we're not sincere about that, we might as well kick it out of the window. Because a lot of us will see that we're not sincere about that. So it's important to be sincere about your thank yous, your hellos, your mornings, because if you're not, the person will see right through it. It's a waste of time. Any questions or concerns on that? Management team, we good? Leadership team, we good with that? All right. What about the challenge of secretary? One of the things I want to talk about a little bit too, and again, the aggressive versus passive. When looking at the ability to recognize and respond to things that matter to the other person is an unhealthy response. A healthy response is the capacity to recognize and respond to things that matter to the person. It's really important. Now, and I'm going to see how good we are again. How many of us have heard about the pancake technique? The pancake technique. We got one. Thank you, sir. You got it? 1 and 2? Okay. Pancake technique. When you're communicating to especially co-workers, when you're communicating to people we've worked with a while or even personal, start off the conversation with something positive and true. Positive and true. As an example, first name is Jennifer. Good morning, Jennifer. All right. First of all, I want to thank you very much for, we've worked for about 3 years now together. And the working relationship has been, I consider, really good. What I want to talk about today is the recent challenges between our departments. Notice pause? That pause is important. But again, whatever we say during this meeting today, understand that we've been successful in 3 years, but I have noticed some things between my team and your team. That's called the sandwich technique. That's exactly how we have to start a relationship. Here's an analogy, you know, I like analogies, we talked about that. When you talk to your significant other on a good day, good morning, they got breakfast and you fed them or something like that, or they after their sports team had just recently won, that's when you want to talk to people. Okay? So really important to identify that, especially how I started off the conversation. We should know a little bit about when we like to work, when's our best time to be approached. Really important. Questions or concerns on that? Another area. Unhealthy responses to explosive, angry, hurtful, and resentful reactions. When we talk about this reaction, we need to understand that that is high or low EQ. Very low EQ. We should be able to communicate as much as possible without anger or really being at a point where we're just so upset we have to walk away. It shouldn't get us to that point at all. the opposite of that is calm non-defense to respectful reactions. Controlling our emotions is critical. Talk a little bit about that. Yes, I know. Unhealthy, the withdrawal of love, resulting in rejection, isolation, shaming, or the fear of abandonment. A readiness to forgive and forget is important, and move past the conflict without holding resentment or anger. Now, we've heard about the situation. If you're upset about a conflict, or if you're upset about a situation, it's really important to remove the emotions out of it and just get to the substance of it. Just again, get to the substance of it. Important. Something that, okay, so here's some areas that we talk about communication. I'm going to talk really quickly about this because I use some scenarios. Attention to nonverbal cues are important. How we present ourselves, folded arms,